All right, U.S. Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas is leading a group of Republican senators in pledging to oppose all efforts to implement and enforce President Biden's sweeping set of vaccine mandates, particularly on upcoming spending measures considered by the U.S. Senate. Now, yesterday, a group of Senate Republicans sent a letter to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer affirming that they will not vote for or support cloture on any continuing resolution in the absence of language protecting Americans from this action. They're simply asking for the opportunity to vote on a measure that would defund any effort to force this mandate on the American people. Well, will they succeed? Joining us now to talk more about this is Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas. He is a member of the Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, a member of the Committee of Health, Education, and Labor and Pensions. He is a former business owner and physician, and he's a leader in the Senate. Senator, welcome back to the program.
Tony, it's great to see you. Good afternoon.
Well, first, can I get your reactions to the president's remarks today in announcing new actions to combat COVID-19?
Yeah. Well, Tony, sometimes the White House sends mixed messages. This would be my message for Americans. 92% of Americans, according to the CDC, now have some level of immunity to COVID. We think that natural immunity is going to serve you well. We think the vaccinations will serve you well, and the boosters will probably be required as well. But something every one of us can do is work on our own immunity. So, eat healthy, exercise, get 7 hours of sleep, all those things that our grandma talked about. So that's what I'm going to stay focused on. There's other issues even more than COVID going on out there. We talk about Omicron if you want to in a little bit, but stay the course, right? Everyone stay the course, do what our grandmas told us to do.
Well, President Biden kind of feels like everybody should get in line with his plan, and that includes you. He kind of made a veiled reference to you and your colleagues there in the Senate. I want to play a clip of what he had to say today. Play clip number 4, please.
And it should be and should get bipartisan support, in my humble opinion. And it should unite us, not continue to separate us. Parenthetically, you all know that there are literally, as it relates to whether or not we're going to pay the federal debt, whether we're going to, in fact, have a continuing resolution, et cetera. Some of my friends on the other team are arguing that if I don't commit that there'll never be any more mandates, they're going to let us default. In the neighborhood I come from in Claymont, they'd look at me and say, go figure.
Senator, how do you respond?
Well, my whole push here is we don't want an economic shutdown, right? And by the way, if there were no more federal mandates, we'd be okay with that one. But specifically, we don't want a federal mandate requiring businesses above any businesses, but specifically his order is anybody with more than 100 employees will be fined by OSHA if everybody's not vaccinated. That's going to be an economic shutdown, right? 400,000 jobs will be affected in Kansas. Arizona, 1 million jobs would be impacted. Georgia, 1.8 million people would lose their jobs in Georgia as well. So we're trying to prevent an economic shutdown. We asked Leader Schumer, Senator Schumer, over a month ago to say, look, let's fix this problem before we get to this date, before we get to midnight tomorrow. He's waited till today to take a peek at this. Again, in the background, 92% of Americans have some level of immunity.
So to be very clear, what you're asking for, what the Republicans that have sent this letter to Senator Schumer, you're simply asking for a vote on the Senate floor as this continuing resolution in agreement to allow it to fast track, to be able to get to the floor and have a vote on it before midnight tomorrow night. You're simply saying, well, let's have a vote as to whether or not we can defund these Biden-imposed mandates. Is that correct?
Yeah, Tony, it is just that simple. And by the way, Schumer could have bypassed us if he had been leading a competent government. He could have bypassed unanimous consent if he would have started this process 3 or 4 days ago. But I'm going to use every tool I can to fight for Americans, to fight for Kansans. So he's given us this opportunity to defund OSHA over this issue. I value people's jobs, and it's more than just jobs. This vaccine mandate's going to cause brownouts. Those people that keep your lights on, we're going to lose some of those folks. So we'll have brownouts. It's going to impact national security. It's going to impact supply chains and increase inflation. And I know all your listeners are being impacted by inflation as well.
All right. So what are they afraid of? I mean, they control the Senate. You're just saying, let's have a vote. And the 51 senators say, all right, we're not going to fund mandates. Then they get their funding for government, but they can't mandate these shots. But if they are so convincing in their justification for these mandates, then the Senate votes for it and it moves forward, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's when we get in the politics of this, right? So maybe, like I mentioned, 1 million jobs in Arizona, 1.8 million jobs at stake in Georgia. So we're going to make a couple senators take a tough vote. And so it's up to the president. It's up to Schumer. Does he want to shut the government down over this? That's up to them. I don't want to shut the government down, but I don't want this vaccine mandate, and I don't want to kill jobs across the country.
Well, I think, and I think I speak for our listeners all across America, including a lot of your constituents in Kansas, is that they are looking for Republicans in the Congress to stand up to the overreach of the Biden administration, which I see you doing by leading this effort in the Senate to simply say, give us a vote. Let us vote on whether or not this should be done. The courts have already said the president has overreached in his authority. This is the role of Congress. And it looks like to me that Congress is shirking its responsibility.
Yeah, Tony, I think the folks all across the country want to see Republicans fighting harder. And that's what I committed to. I've been a fighter my whole life. You talked about the Dobbs, Mississippi case. I've been fighting to protect life. At conception, my whole entire life as an obstetrician, I'm going to keep fighting to protect life. I'm going to keep fighting to protect our God-given constitutional rights. The big picture here is this is an unconstitutional federal vaccine mandate. All the courts agree with that. Let's give those employers some certainty. I signed a paycheck every other week for 25 years. I know what it's like to have federal government issues out there that tie my hands. Let's give those employers some certainty back home. Let's get rid of this OSHA mandate. Let's make sure they have no funding that they can go after my businesses back home.
I could not agree with you more, Senator. And again, reflecting on the Dobbs case yesterday, the Supreme Court would not have been taking on that issue had it not been state legislators that had been pushing the issue of life. You know, Congress hasn't done anything to speak of on that issue. I mean, I know there are members of Congress like yourself and others that have been fighting, but for the most part, Congress has wanted to avoid taking these tough issues, these tough votes, just like what you described. Senator Schumer does not want to force the Democrats to vote on whether or not they support the overreach of Joe Biden in forcing these shots on the American people. They want to hide. They want to hide behind the courts. They want to hide behind procedure. And what you are doing is flushing them out. And I commend you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. And I just can't help but just talk more about that Dobbs case. I'm so excited that this historic opportunity has presented itself, that for such a time as this, Donald Trump was president to appoint 3 conservative Supreme Court justices. And I'm just thrilled by the line of questioning yesterday. I'm thrilled that we have a chance to take this issue back to the local states to protect life at 15 weeks and beyond. You and I want to protect life at conception, but the supermajority of Americans believe that we should not be aborting babies that can feel pain, that can suck their thumb, that can hear their mom's voice, that can understand a sibling's voice in the room as well. So this is a golden opportunity God has given us, and I can't wait for the decision come this next summer.
I'm with you on that. And again, I would just underscore, we would not be at this moment had there not been men and women in public office that were willing to push back. Just what you're doing in the United States Senate. We need more leaders who will rock the boat, if you will, whatever analogy you want to use. We need, or metaphor, we need to be pushing back, holding firm, and defending the Constitution and the freedoms of the American people. And again, Senator, I commend you for doing that. And thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Tony. We appreciate all your support.